see any Democrat that you're worried about?
I don't see anybody that I would. This is not. There is no Winston Churchill in the group. Let me put it that way.
You don't see Joe Biden as the new Winston Churchill?
No, I think that would be a big upset if he was. I'll tell you, that would be a big surprise to a lot of people. No, there's nobody that I see that should be able to win.
As of today, by the way, we're inside 18 months until the election. There's a new poll from CNN that has Joe Biden maintaining his lead among Democrats. Former vice president is at 32%, followed by Bernie Sanders at 18%, Kamala Harris at 8%, Elizabeth Warren at 7%, and so on. On this network tonight at a town hall hosted by Chris Hayes, Senator Warren was asked about taking on Trump in a general election.
What do you say to people that say, I like you on the substance, but I'm worried about your electability as the nominee for the Democratic Party?
You know, I remember when people said Barack Obama couldn't be elected. I remember when people said Donald Trump couldn't be elected.
It's also true.
And here we are. Elections are about getting in there and fighting for it and making clear to the American people what you stand for. I got in this race because an America that keeps working better and better and better for a thinner and thinner slice at the top just isn't going to work.
Here with us to talk politics tonight, John Ralston, veteran journalist and editor at the Nevada Independent, and our own national political correspondent, Steve Kornacki. Gentlemen, welcome to you both. Steve, I'm kind of fascinated. CNN in their poll asked a straight-up question, and you know this is coming. Do you think Trump will win in 2020? Yes, 54, no, 41. Steve, that yes way exceeds what we are taught is his base. So explain those numbers, other than it's early.
It's early, but I look at that and I just see that there is a hangover from 2016, I think, there, if that's the right term, probably for a lot of Democrats. Probably for a lot of Democrats who looked at polls throughout the entire 2016 campaign and they saw that there was no nominee who'd ever been as unpopular as Trump was. There was no nominee who'd ever had numbers as low as Trump when it came to, do you think this person is competent? Do you think this person is qualified to be president? Trump was off the charts low when it came to all those questions in 2016. And yet even Democrats who didn't like him watched him win anyway. And so I think they look now, a certain number of Democrats, Republicans probably just want Trump to win and answer yes, but I think a certain number of Democrats look at it and they say, well, his job approval may be low. He may be coming off a rough midterm, but we remember 2016.
Hey, John, I got two states for you here. I have polls from Michigan and Texas. First up, Michigan shows Biden up 12. Sanders notably also up 12. Buttigieg is the other headline here, up 6, Warren and Harris. Let's go to Texas, and this gets you closer to the margin of error with Biden up 4, and then you see all the results in ruby red Texas for the Democrats. John, what do you make of it, or do you make nothing of it because it's too damn early?
Well, yeah, I think, Brian, the most important number I've heard so far from you tonight is 18. That is 18 months away from the election. I don't think you can discern a lot from this. And so at the risk of the great Steve Kornacki disagreeing with me, which I would never want to happen on national television, I will say that none of these numbers mean that much outside of, obviously, Biden has name recognition in all these states. He does in Nevada, too. He's ahead in a couple of polls I've seen here, although not as much as in some others. Those Texas numbers are the most interesting ones to me, though, Brian. If those are real, that is a warning beacon for Team Trump, because if Texas is really like that right now, that could be a real problem for the president.
Steve Kornacki, your name is invoked. You get an automatic rebuttal.
Here's one way I think these numbers do matter, and it connects to the first question you just asked there, that shows a majority of voters right now saying they think Trump's getting reelected, and that includes a substantial number of people, relatively speaking, who don't like Trump and don't want to see him get reelected. And that tells me how important that issue of electability is going to be to Democratic primary voters. And we can go on and on with this debate about how do you measure electability, how do you define it. It is an inexact thing. But to the extent it matters particularly to Democratic voters heading into 2020, if this becomes a trend where you take a poll in a state like Texas and there's Joe Biden leading and there's every other Democratic candidate trailing, When you look at that sort of culture on the Democratic side right now that's valuing electability, if that's something we keep seeing, Biden outperforming the rest of the Democratic field, I think these polls start mattering very much in the Democratic race.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.